What does collaboration look like on a film project as a concept artist, and how is it different in working as a matte painter?
Okay, yeah. So, usually, once again, let's start with conceptual and then talk about mapping. So for conceptual work, you would talk to either your art director or maybe production manager or maybe supervisor, and they will tell you what they need for, a specific shot or whatever that can be. And so, based on that, you got to make sure that you understand the task, and based on that, you go to your workplace, you do your research, and then you come up with the images, right? And sometimes there are many iterations because it's kind of hard to, or they don't even know what they want. So, and then plenty of versions. So for instance, this was for Godzilla, right? And that ended up being approved a kind of keyframe or style frame for ice covering sequence of shots. And then these are like, if you look at the bottom, these are like just the two of them, of the versions, how that painting was evolving. And there were many, like so many versions. And that's how it kind of goes. So you go through versions, so then you submit it for review either to your art director at a studio or supervisor. They will give you feedback. Maybe you have to change something. So you make those changes, you submit it once again. Once they're happy, they send it to the client supervisor, for instance. So then the client supervisor might give you feedback as well. So it goes back to you once again. So you make those changes. So your internal supervisor approves it or not. So then once he's happy. So we send it again to client supervisor. Once client supervisor is happy, they show it to director. And director might say, that's awesome. Or he might say, what is that? And it might go all the way back to the very beginning after all of those iterations.
That's funny because you say your job as a concept artist is to answer the question
exactly
with what you work, and if he's coming back with more questions, I'm like, not the answer I was hoping to get.
Exactly, because everyone is different, and sometimes those opinions, they might not line up at all. Sometimes they do, and that's great. Sometimes you kind of get it like from the first go, and that's awesome. Other times it takes literally maybe weeks, to get that sort of look. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean you work on only this one thing, but I mean the work on one kind of image or one asset or one design might take weeks. It's always different. So yeah, that would be more of a process for conceptual work. So for matte painting type of work, let's say, we can even, I don't know, let's talk about this one, for instance. So that's what you might be given, right? So this is the plate. That's how they shot it on location. So, and obviously green screen specifically there, so it's easier to key that person out and then replace the whole background. So they give it to you, and knowing that the background will be replaced, so you actually go and do matte painting. And matte painting is if you know that it's going to be a matte painting, so you treat it the same way. You're making sure that you're breaking everything down on layers, you respect the layer structure and things of that nature. But you also understand that maybe first iteration or first version might not necessarily be final. So this was from first iteration, but as you saw the other one, daytime, so it went through couple steps before we arrived at that final look. And so once again, you try to kind of keep that in mind, but maybe not necessarily invest 100% of your time into one version. So, and that's why we have daily review sometimes. So, it's great if you're fast and you can produce maybe a couple of versions within a day or maybe more. It's not always the case, but the faster you work, the better as well. But obviously that comes with experience too. So that's one example. For instance, for this stuff, for this kind of work, like that may be something that you were given, for instance, right? And then that's as far as 3D went. But you have to make it look for real. So from the first glance, it looks like, well, I'm in trouble, man. I have some rough geo in that. So, but then your 2D painting skills come into play. So, and then you convert that into that, and that what goes on the screen. So the same kind of idea goes here. And these are like two establishing frames that I did that actually I had a bit of freedom to sort of like even design them a little bit, so I can layout pretty much stayed similar, but I mean I changed a couple of things. I kind of wanted to let it go into the distance and then come back to the focal point, and all of that sort of dictated how the rest of the sequence look like. So basically stuff like that is kind of establishing matte painting work. So it's like a concept in a sense that it dictates the look, but it's also matte painting because it's used in the movie itself.
You started to allude to the idea of speed, but I guess when you are working for your art director or your producers or whoever's kind of in the conversation, how do you balance the needs of cost, time, and quality? Or do you find that in a film environment they just, is it more aggressive in terms of getting to final, or do you get the iteration time necessary to get what you need accomplished?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like it depends as well. I mean, usually from, at least from what I found really happening at work, is that for the first ideas, they would like to see kind of rather quicker or faster for the first ideas, to kind of see that, okay, so you understood what the task was about, and then you are on the right track. And once they see that in those ideas, maybe rough ideas, once they see that in those ideas there is potential, so they will tell you which ones, and then you might have a little bit more time to kind of flesh it out better. But the sooner you can, represent those initial ideas, the better. I mean, the same sort of goes for matte painting as well, but I think matte painting can be more straightforward in certain examples. Like, for instance, in this particular case, the matte painting is just about the sky and the trees in the background. But you wouldn't believe, but it went through so many iterations for those trees. Like, I mean, you would say, well, it's fairly simple thing, stick the trees there and that's it. But it's not like that. Quite often, the little thing takes so long, and many different artists might work. So before I took over this one, there was another artist, and I think there was someone else. There was 3D team. So there were versions. But like I said, like the best if you can show the potential, sooner. And once they see, okay, that's cool. So maybe, you show it next day or something like that. And usually we have like daily reviews, and you kind of show your progress. At least if you work at a studio, that's how it happens. If you do freelance, then you kind of manage your time maybe accordingly and kind of talk to your supervisors that way.